Hello all, Alison here and welcome back to Words and Pictures. I don't know if you can guess what we're going to be playing with today. I'm more than a little obsessed with the Tim Holtz Moon Mask made by Stampers Anonymous. It's a joyous mask and stencil, so it comes with 2 bits in 3 different sizes, and I love creating moonlit scenes with it, whether they are summer nights in the meadow, live gently upon this earth, or autumnal or spooky little ones. In fact, on these scarecrow ones, I played with all 3 sizes, or maybe it's the large one and then a couple of the little ones, and had the scarecrow getting closer and closer on a moonlit night, creeping up on you. I quite often use it, as you can see, with dried grasses and seed heads to add to the meadowgrass stamping, and also with my quote stamps, my word stamps from PaperArtsy. Every hour of the light and dark is a miracle. Dwell on the beauty of life, watch the stars and see yourself running with them. Another summer night one here. At midnight in the month of June, I stand beneath the mystic moon. That's one of my floating quotes, just hovering above there. It also works as you head into autumn, as I said, and winter. I've got lots of, winter, Christmas makes going on, and even a special visitor silhouetted against the moon. So all of these, all of these benefit from the sheer beauty of this moon mask, and yeah, I love creating it in various shades of grey and blue. And what I most of all love is creating this kind of dimensional look to it. So that's all about the shading, and that's really what we're going to have a play with it today. There it is through the window outside in that little picture frame with the Tim Holtz beautiful arch die and embossed brick texture, all of that kind of business going on in that little frame. So yeah, I'm going to clear the decks and we'll get started with a brand new, probably pair of tags, because I do love working in pairs. Pair, pair, pair. Really, those are pair, that's a pair. So we'll have a little play today with shading the moon mask, and it will involve building in techniques from other videos. There'll be some ink blending, there'll be some spritzing and flicking, I'm sure, and there will be some layered meadowgrass stamping, because why not? As soon as you start to layer up the foliage and the stamps over this moon, you get a little bit of magic going on. So join me today and we'll create some moon tags. Back in a sec. I'm filming at the end of July, and earlier this week there were a few nights of absolutely extraordinary moons, from the full moon and then just gradually waning, but it stayed almost full for several nights, and it was just beautiful. So that's the other reason I've been inspired to get the moon mask out again, is just from looking out of my window. I've got some manila tags here. I sometimes start this from white, either by giving these a coat of white paint or gesso, or just by starting with white card. But because the moon I've been looking at has had a really beautiful golden glow, I'm going to stick with these manila ones for now. And because we're creating shadow, this manila is going to take on a whiter glow anyway. And then when we come to the shading, it'll be easier to see what's going on. So here are the moon masks. And as I mentioned, it's in the pack in 3 sizes. And in each size you get the mask, and you get the, I guess, the stencil to create the texture on the moon. And I guess that's one of the reasons I love this, because we're creating texture. We're creating those textures that you can see on the moon on a clear night. Let's start with, I mean, I could do a trio. No, I'm going to stick to a pair. The moon, as it rises, it looks large when it's close to the ground. It looks smaller as it goes further up in the sky. So I'm going to call that a progression of time between these 2 tags. The same moon, probably over the same landscape, but as it gets further away in the sky, it looks smaller. And I've just grabbed some favourite distress inks, some stamps I think I might use, my PaperArtsy latest meadow grasses, also some of the earlier umbellifers, and I've got some word stamps here. We've already seen a couple of these in action on the other moon tags. This is EABO2, darkness and light. So all those quotes are about light and dark and shadow and illumination, both literal and metaphorical. So without further ado, let's do some ink blending. I think we'll start with subtler colours and build our colours in layers, because that's usually the way to go in terms of getting something with variation and depth. So this is Stormy Sky I'm starting out with, and I'm going to do quite a light touch. So it's heavy in that dark corner, but that's up in the deep sky. And then as I come down around here, I'm going to try and be a bit lighter handed. And you could tape down this moon mask. You could tape down with double-sided sticky tape or something like that. I, for the most part, tend to hang on to it with my fingertips and just pay attention to if it moves. I'm even going to be bold enough to take it away and show you. There we go, moon mask. Simple as that. And already that is making me happy. I kind of don't need to go much further, but I will. So let's build in some layers. I think because it's a summery one, I think I'm going to go Uncharted Mariner rather than Chipped Sapphire, just because it's got that sort of summery ocean glow about it. So let's bring that in from the top, and immediately as I layer that over, you can see that it starts to give me more depth in my night sky. I'm going to gently bring it up to the edge of the moon, but mostly stay sort of above the horizon line with that one. Just build that depth a little bit. I might even be tempted into a little bit of Wilted Violet, just some little purple tones. Okay, so that's slipped the teeniest little bit. I'm going to make sure I'm back in line with where my moon has been, and just let a little purple creep in around the edges. Oh, lovely, lovely, lovely. So again, I'm going to let you take a look and just see how that really starts to pop where we've got the darker colours coming in. I'm going to come up from the bottom now, just creating some moonlit meadows. So I might start with something like Hickory smoke, maybe. Beautiful soft grey. Let's use our greyish. I'm probably not going to come up as far as the moon, but this moon mask is quite helpful for making sure I don't put inky fingers all over my nice moon space. So let's start with Hickory smoke down here and see where we get to. It will be building some layers again. Now, one of the things I do want to do with my moon is create a sense of dimension. So actually what I am going to do is break my own rule and take the moon mask away and just bring a bit of shadow. I'm still going to use it though to stop my inky fingers getting anywhere. Bring a bit of shadow up from below. So just a kind of darker shading in that bit of moon. I don't like that hard line, so I'm just going to soften it a little bit. It won't show so much once I've got the texture on, but that's just giving me a little bit of the dark side of the moon. Anyone for a rock album? There we go. Going to leave that for now. Going to bring in some more darks from the bottom. I think maybe a bit of vintage photo coming up from my meadow. Let's borrow this again so that I don't get inky fingers everywhere. Yeah, just a little bit of subtle brown coming in around the edges. And you can see my tag here has got built into it just a little bit of marking paper. There's something about the lining of the paper there that is causing that line. Again, I don't mind so much. We're going to be inking down here. We're going to be stamping down here. What I am quite excited about is the last time I made a moon tag, Scorched Timber hadn't yet been released. So I'm quite excited to bring Scorched Timber into the mix here. because it's such a beautiful dark, cool dark brown, which means it's great for nighttime scenes. And I'm just going to take it up into that blue area just a little bit, because what I love is what happens where you get the blues and the browns overlapping and you get these beautiful kind of bronzy tones coming out. I think I want just a little bit more contrast to the edge of the moon here, so I'm going to come back in with the stormy sky. Oh, or maybe no, it will be stormy sky. It's going to be stormy sky. Stick with it. And just bring a little bit more blue down towards the meadow as well while I'm at it. Yep, that's looking pretty good for a starting place to me. So let's do the same or similar thing here. It's later in the night, so maybe it's got a bit darker. So as I come in, I'm going to start with the stormy sky again, just as a starting bid, as it were. There's just something about masking that is kind of magical. Something about that reveal that happens as you take the mask away to see what's going on. So yeah, we'll take the stormy sky quite a long way down the tag. And because I'm going to come over with other colours, I'm not terribly bothered about those blending tool marks there. I could blend them out if I wanted to, but I think for now, because I'm going to come over with some other colours, I'm not terribly bothered. Right, let's come in with the Uncharted Mariner onto here. I've just started a new sponge here, which is why that's not a very dark blue yet. That is my dark blue sponge, but I've just had to throw away my previous dark blue sponge. I really do wear them out fully. Hang on, I'm grabbing it out of the bin to show you. That's literally coming to pieces, that sponge, and leaving bits of sponge behind when you blend with it. And that's the point at which I start a new one. So reposition, just paying attention to where those lines are, and bring in a bit more of the dark. And there's a joy to me in this process. I apologise if you can hear that squeaking. I wonder if I can stop it from happening. It's my stands that hold my ink on the table right on the craft desk, and in the ordinary way of things, they don't bother me at all when they make that noise when I'm blending, but I'm just conscious that you can hear it. And then we wanted some wilted violet, and you can see for this I'm using the same sponge. I'm not bothered about my blues and my purples combining. That's fine by me, because I like to blend all my colours anyway. It's very rare that I want a pure version of something. So I'm going to take that down the sides there, just so we're building a bit more night sky into this one. Yes, nice. So you can see there's a subtle difference between the earlier moon and the later moon. And then again, I'm just going to use very subtly, as I come in with the hickory smoke, I'm going to bring some of it up into the dark side of the moon. Again, I think it's going to be useful to me to use this just to hold the tag still, because my fingers are getting inky now, always a sign of a good time, but I don't want it to get onto the clean space of the moon. I want to keep that nice and bright and shiny. So I'm bringing hickory smoke up from the bottom again, as I did before, and it's starting to blend into those purples and blues, and that's all good. I bring it in to just soften those areas where the blue is arriving downwards, and then again I'm going to just bring it up under the lower end of the moon. Quite a subtle effect, and hopefully it'll also draw some of those blues into action. Yes, look at that. That's that dark blue also heading onto the shady side of the moon. Subtle, but there. And it's sort of making me want a similar thing to happen here. So I might bring just a little bit of Uncharted Mariner. Where's my dark blue sponge gone? There. Bring just a little bit of that Uncharted Mariner into the lower side of this moon. It's actually got wilted violet on there as well, but I'm really fine with that. So it's just creating, yes, 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 yes. Let's do the same over here. Just with the straight sponge, without inking it up, but that's the sponge creating that shadow on the lower side of the moon. Yeah, it's doing good things. Softening that line I had from the mask. Yes, nice. So let's finish coming up from the earth on this one. And you can see this is another of the reasons I love working in pairs and series, because you can grow and develop your ideas as you go. You try something out, you do something slightly different on the next one, and then that can inform how you want to change things on the first one. So it's toing and froing, it's learning as I go, it's exploring and experimenting and adding. You learn something from every single step you take, from every single colour you add, and it tells you something about where you might want to go with the project overall. So this is Vintage Photo coming in up the bottom, our earthy meadow, and again just some dark scorched timber I want as well. Gently does it with the scorched timber because it really is, it's powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. And again, because it's darker night at this point, I can afford a bit more of it. Let's just compare those two. Nice. So yeah, just after dusk, twilight. Oh, twilight is such a wonderful word, and so is dusk, for a wonderful time of day. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, bear with me while the camera wobbles, so that for these next stages you've got a closer view of what's happening. There we go. So very happy with those so far. They're making my heart sing just that little bit. I've deliberately left sort of patches of light in the centers of these tags because it just gives you that moonlit glow down below. Little bits of fluff, let's get rid of those. And there is now a mark on my moon. I don't mind, because as we're about to discover, the moon's got texture. Before I do that though, I'm going to put a bit of highlighting at the top side of the moon. So this is the Distress Crayon in Picket Fence, and I'm just going to use it to go round the top side of the moon's glow, just adding a little bit of that white pigment. So again, this is just helping, it's going to help with that illusion of dimensionality, because dimensionality is all about light and shadows. So I want that whiteness right around the edge. And again, it doesn't matter if it starts blending with the dark colours. The moon is not a consistent colour if you look at it. It's got bright bits and dark bits and gnarly bits and textured bits and pits and crevices. So any imperfection I positively embrace. So I've got a chunk of picket fence there, but I'll just spend some time smoothing it out. And then if I want an even more glowing top to my moon, what I might do is see if I've got a working white pen around. Sometimes they cooperate, sometimes they don't, white pens. Has anybody else noticed that? Sometimes they play nicely, sometimes they don't. Give it a shake, see what we've got. Oh, there is something going on in there. So I might just take myself, let's find the working side of the nib, right around this top edge with the pen, just to brighten it up a bit. That's really not doing very much at all. Let's see if the Posca pen will do better. I've got it here somewhere. Hello, where's the white one? I don't want the turquoise one, that wouldn't work. There's the white one. So this is a white Uni-Posca paint pen. You need to give that a shake. You can probably hear the little mixing ball going on in there. Let's see what that gives us. Little splodge of the nib. Okay, let's give that a go. Just carefully around the edge of the moon there. And it's just to give me a real brightness right on the top of there. I think what I might also do is take a little bit of Snowflake Fresco paint, that's a white, and the water brush, and just encourage a little additional whiteness with the paint, and the paint will go nowhere. So that's blending in with the pumice stone crayon, and just giving me a bit more dimensionality. So we really are mixed media now. We've got ink and crayon and pen and paint. There we go. That's all quite good. I'm just creating dimensionality in my sphere here. For some reason, that's decided to go pink. I'm going to live with it. It's a very subtle pink, so I think I can cope. And I think it might be time for a bit of spritzing and flicking. So I'm going to take my water, a little bit into the palm of my hand, and straight down onto my tags. Let that sit for just a minute so that it can interact with the water reactive distress inks, create that lovely texture. And then I'm going to lift it away. And you can see as I put the paper towel down, lots of areas where that is soaking up and away, and I get myself magical texture. So that's already giving me some moon texture. Look at that, that's quite exciting. I've got some texture going on the moon. I'm just going to try and hit that top corner of that tag, which missed out on the droplets earlier. Let's get that out. I'd say that's a fairly magical sort of moonlit night, wouldn't you? Quite pleased with that. I'm really interested about this reaction that's going on here. Can't quite work out why I've got that pinky colour at the top there, but I'll live with it. Maybe there was something on the nib of the water brush, except if there is, it looks as if it's blue. Who knows? But what I can always do is put a little bit more white paint over it and just soften that pinkiness a little bit. Not much further pink. Every now and then, flowers are allowed to be pink, but I don't think I want the moon particularly pink. That's maybe some kind of chemical reaction that I've not encountered before going on between, I don't know, the picket fence and what else have we got on there? Nothing much. It's actually quite a nice effect. I'm not going to worry about it very much. I'm going to give that a quick blast with the heat gun so that we can progress to the next stage without losing any of that lovely texture that we've got going on. Make sure it's nicely dry. Putting pens away while I do it so that they're not in the way. Let's pop these to one side. So there we go. Beautiful moonlit landscapes. Let's bring them up so you can have a look at that texture. That's a happy thing. Might just clean some of this ink off the mat while I'm at it. A little spritz of water, a little wipe. There we go. So the next stage is to do a little bit of moon texture, deliberate moon texture. So it's taking the stencils, positioning them. Again, if you want to take a look at the actual moon, you can decide to have them. So I do this way up, I do this that way up. I think what I might do is is ink over some of that pink. And because I'm saying this is the same moon moving through the same night, for once I am going to pay some attention to having it do approximately the same thing in terms of direction. And to start this, I think I'm going to go Hickory smoke. So that's again the cool grey, and I'm going to quite gently pop some of that into these texture areas. Hold it down, make sure we're lined up with the outside, and in it goes. Again, start gently. You can always add more colour. It's pretty tough taking colour away. So I'll start quite gently. I'm going to try and make sure I get into each of the nooks and crannies. I know there are now some rounded blending tools, domed blending tools, which I hear are excellent for this. I haven't explored with them yet. What more do you need? It's I don't know why it is that it makes me so very happy, but it does. So let's try and get that at approximately the same angle. It's not exactly the same pattern, but it's pretty close. So like so, and I'm just going to hold that nice and firmly with the bit that I can reach, and then get some pumice stone going into, no, it's not pumice stone, beg its pardon, hickory smoke. I do quite often do this with pumice stone, which is why I've got pumice stone on the brain as I do that. Look at that. Look at that. And then if you want to get really fancy, you can also do delicious things like adding just a tidge, a smidge. Again, I might not even ink it up. I'm just going to use whatever's on the brush. And I'm not going to go over the whole thing. I'm just going to go into a couple of those edges. Just a couple of those spaces. So again, it's just creating depth in that texture. Just a little bit of extra definition to the craters of the moon. Coming in, just hitting it with a slightly darker. Pretty happy with that. Pretty happy. Bring it a little closer so you can have a look. It's such a magical thing to play with. Such a magical thing to play with. And I suppose this obsession with dimension sort of started when I started my journey with watercolours and berries and so on and so forth. Because that process of examining where light falls and how shadows are cast just started to make its way into what I was doing on the tags as well. I think I want as a base this beautiful Tim Holtz stamp. I think that's going to be position number 1. I'll do it in something, ooh, what'll it be? Scorched timber is going to be quite full on. I think I'll save the scorched timber. I'm going to go for quite subtle with this one, I think. We'll see whether it shows up or not. And I'm going to use an archival because I don't want it to move around. I'm going to go with archival watering can. And this is going to be a subtle look, except that I'm going to make sure some of it goes over that moon, layered over the moon, so that you will see it. And that's going to come in from that corner, like so. Wooden stamps, really firm pressure down through because there's no going back after that first impression. I mean, look how beautiful. It's such a gorgeous stamp. And I'm gonna create a little bit more depth down at the bottom here with that same one. So just stamping the top of it. Deep sigh of pleasure. Let's ink up and do something similar here. It's going to be tougher to get it to go over the moon, so I'm going to pretend there's sort of grasses coming up and in. And now I'm looking up from below, because that would be the only way that grasses would cover the moon when it's that high in the sky. But if I'm lying down in the meadow and I look up at the moon, then I might well have some grasses silhouetted against it. Nice. I do love this stamp. I do love this stamp. Very, very much love this stamp. There we go. So that's step number 1 with the layered meadowgrass stamping. So you can see what we're doing here is we're taking things that before I've shared as sort of individual techniques or possibilities, and we're using them all together. So the spritz and flick, some masking and stenciling, the layered meadowgrass stamping. It's applying those principles and letting them work a little bit harder for you. So I now think I want, yeah, maybe some of my own grasses coming into this. And these, I'm going to stick to the silhouette one because this is in silhouette, so it won't make sense, especially given it's nighttime. It won't make sense if the other is a sketch rather than a silhouette. So this and this I'm going to do in a slightly darker colour. Shall I go all the way to scorched timber? That's going to be pretty full on. Yeah, let's take a risk. It's a really, really full on dark colour. And I'm going to have those grasses come in from here at a slight angle And there you've got depth. It's like a kind of little magic trick. Things in the foreground much clearer, things in the background a little softer and lighter. And I'm just going to take some up the side here so that that's not standing quite so sort of bare and solitary by itself. I might do the same just down here, just with a little bit. Oh, and I'm sort of tempted to take just a little bit up the side of the moon as well. Just layering to complement that Tim Holtz stamp that's already there. And that might well be enough for me. That might well be all I want from these tags. Tempted to let them sit just for a moment, go away, maybe have a cup of tea, and then come back and have a look and see what else I might want. Oh, well, I know straight away what else I want. I didn't take a cup of tea to work it out. I want just a little bit of moonlight splatter. Where's my scabby spatter brush? There's my scabby spatter brush. All a mess. In fact, it's still got some white paint on from last time, all over my hands. Definitely having a good time today, can you see? Just a little bit of gentle tapping of that spatter down onto there, and it's the randomness, it's the movement, it's the delight of that spontaneity that you get with those spatters. Want a little bit there. I'm going to dry those quite quickly because that's very watery paint, so it's going to be inclined to suck up the ink from below. You'll see already it's not quite white. It's taking some of those highly pigmented Uncharted Mariner tones. The Wilted Violet is also very highly pigmented. So the white paint, if you spatter watery white paint on those, that's going to become slightly infected by what's below it. But I'm not against that. I think that gives us a softer look. So you can see as I'm drying that it's no longer quite so bright white. And I think that's a good thing on those stamps. I think all I really want probably are a few words on here. And I think it might be a question of some white embossing powder. So this is the Wow Opaque Bright White. So having said I was going to go away and have a cup of tea, I'm plunging onwards. Where there is much light, the shadows are deepest. That's Goethe. And if there be light, then there is darkness. Pythagoras. I think that's a nice balance, those two. So this is slightly heart in mouth because I love these tags as they are. If there be light, then there be darkness. There is darkness. Where's the other one? What was it? Where there is much light, the shadows are deepest. I think it's fallen out. Doesn't seem to be here. It's one of my most used quotes. What's that one say? I'm going to have to go searching for it in the box. I'll be back in a moment. I haven't found it. I expect what I've done when I've been using multiple quotes is I've slipped that one back into one of the other packets. So I've now got out EAB 3, which is Music and Silence. And so along with number 2, Darkness and Light, I'm going to pick one of these beautiful thoughts about silence. And it's going to be silence is of different kinds and breathes different meanings. So that silent moonlit night. So Charlotte Bronte, where are you? Don't tell me you've gone missing as well. No, there it is. Silence is of different kinds and breathes different meanings. I don't want to have the author's name on these. So what I'm going to do is, while I ink it up, I'm going to put just a little bit of design tape over the name so that I'm not inking up the author of the quote, and that means they won't get stamped either. So a little bit over the top of Pythagoras, like so, and a little bit over the top of Charlotte Bronte, like so. It was really important to me when I was designing the stamp sets that the authorship was there. I like to give credit to writers I think they deserve the credit for their words. They're not all writers, some of them are. I mean, there were quotes from Einstein, scientists, philosophers, all kinds of things. But essentially, the creators of the words, or the putters together of the words, deserve to have their names known. But you don't always want the name of the author on whatever you're doing. So you have the option. I'm going to dry this further, because one of the things that I'm always forgetting to do is make sure that everything is dry before I tip embossing powder over my quote. If I tip embossing powder over my quote and the things below are still wet, the embossing powder is going to stick to those too. And because I used scorched timber to stamp these grasses, that's going to be really moist and juicy, and it's going to cling on to embossing powder in a really full-on way. So hopefully with my faffing around looking for the stamp, that's given it a bit of time to dry, but I'm really going to try and make sure that this is as dry can be, especially down the bottom here where I'm aiming to stamp the quotes. That's where I really want things to be properly dry. Fingers crossed, eh? Fingers crossed. Let's see. So this one is going to go here, just fits on the tag. That's pretty much intentional, but it will do that. Maybe we want the longer one here with the bigger moon. No, we want the longer one with the smaller moon, and the shorter quote will go down in that corner. Yeah, that's good. So again, I'll get out my stamping block, pop this down. The stamping grids, the Tim Holtz stamping grids, have these beautiful grid lines on them, so you can line up your words along a grid line, and that way hopefully get yourself a nice straight stamping. Doesn't always happen, in which case I just embrace imperfection and go with it. I'm going to stamp in Archival. I could stamp in Distress ink, but because they're juicier and this is really fine detail stamping, I find if I stamp in the Distress ink and then emboss it, quite often the words get a bit indistinct, whereas if I stamp in Archival, then I get a nice fine clear stamping, and it is enough for the powder to stick to. Embossing ink, I gave up using actual embossing ink years ago because I just find it too sticky, and also I don't kind of like the sickly sweet smell of it. I'm not convinced that I got enough ink right into the middle of those words, so I'm popping the masking tape back on. So much for a few minutes of fun. I feel like this is extending again, because I'm having fun. They just happen to be a few more minutes of fun. Firm contact down, make sure I get ink contact all the way across. And as usual, I've forgotten to have a piece of paper on standby. So grab whatever's around and scatter my embossing ink over that stamping. Away it goes. Phew, and I was dry enough behind, but you can see there's still little bits of those grass stems that have wanted to hang on to that. Not a problem. Grab a nice fine little brush and just knock it away. I don't think it's going to mean I can't read the quote. And in some ways, it might be quite a nice thing. But for now, I'm going to put that gently to one side, make sure I don't knock it, and immediately do the stamping of the other one. Let's grab this embossing powder back. I might just pop the lid on it, just safer. Where's my grid block gone? Where have I put it down? So that's quote number 1 done. Quote number 2, line it up again on the grid lines. Apologies if I did that off camera the last time, because I've zoomed in. I'm assuming I've got the whole area in focus, and of course I haven't because I've zoomed in for you. Ink it up, make sure there's ink on all the words. It shouldn't matter what colour you use in ink terms. If you're putting an opaque embossing powder over the top, that's what's going to take the focus. And I think I want to position this one slightly down in the corner just to create a diagonal with that moon up there. Oh, I can feel that was sticking on, that's good. That's definitely a sign that I've got an imprint. On goes the powder. Off comes the powder. Yeah, good. It's slightly crooked, but I can absolutely live with that. I can absolutely live with that. Lid onto there. And then as I heat emboss it, you should see that that powder will become more opaque as it gets its full glossiness. I think, have I hit any extra bits here? No, I think we're all good. I think that's white spatter behind. See, that's why you put the lid on the embossing powder, because I just knocked it over. And here we go, the magic of the emboss. As those little granules of plastic melt and fuse together, they A, become permanent, B, become a little brighter and more definite, and C, really pop against that background. Delicious. Delicious. And this one, I'm trying to hold the heat tool so you can see that moment where it shifts. You can watch it happen, moving across the tag as the embossing powder melts. It's like a little magic trick. Yes. So I had thought of maybe adding dried flowers to these, little seed heads and stems, but I think that I rather like them as they are. What I do want to add is maybe a little bit of twine wrapping. So just bear with me a second, I'm going to go and grab that. I've come back not only with the white twine, but with a lavender stem or two and some seed heads, just to double check that I don't want to do that. I've got some dried gypsophila. I've got these ones that I picked up on a woodland walk, not even quite sure what they are. Do I want a lavender stem? I think it's a bit much. I don't know. I'm uncertain. Maybe now is when I need to go for the cup of tea and give that some time to percolate. Let's have a look at this gypsophila stem. I think I might snip those shorter. Snip, snip. Make them into two stems. It might be quite nice to have that little touch of white flower with the white embossing and the white moon above. Oh yeah, I do like it now that I see it. Maybe take these ones out and have just the white and the lavender. Oh, the lavender smells so good. It's looking slightly the worse for wear now, but it smells amazing. I really need smell-o-vision to let you have a shot at that. Lavender stem over the moon. Yes, okay, yes, sold. So, snip it shorter, because that's just really being annoying, having these really long stems going on there. Let's have you go in the direction we want you to go. There. Have you go in the direction we want you to go. There. And you can see there are bits of lavender coming off. It's smelling lovelier and lovelier as I go. And again, that's fine with me. Lots of you have asked me whether I treat these particularly. You could give them a coat of matte medium to get them to stay put. But for the most part, this is an ephemeral thing I'm making. I don't want it to last for centuries. That's not what it's about. It's about the joy I've taken in the process. It's not necessarily about making something that's going to last forever. Yeah, I think I like that. And for sheer ease of getting those to cooperate, I think what I might do is deploy the tiny attacher again. So Tim's tiny stapler is just a really good way of getting initial sticky downness with wild plants. I could afterwards use glue, but that can get a bit messy, and if you've got wet glue over distress inks, they're liable to get involved and start moving around. So a little bit there, and that gives me lovely dimensionality as well. If I want it a bit further down, I could put another one here, because I'm about to wrap some twine around this, so it's not gonna, you're not gonna see hundreds of staplers. Also, they're so subtle that you don't really see them anyway. I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to take that off. I sometimes like the stems sticking out over the edge, but I think on this particular occasion, I'm going to stick with not. Let's pop you down there. Will you spread out nicely for me if I do that? Yes, you will. Okay, so trying to pick it up, and start by just popping a staple in where those stems are meeting. That's pretty much done what I need it to do. I might staple you down a little just to keep you in place. Very simple. Oh, I'm going to keep these bits of lavender. I'm going to put them in a sock drawer. It's supposed to keep the moths away, I hear. Let's snip that so that's not sticking out. Let's snip that in that direction so that's not sticking out. And I know it's sort of over the words here, but I'm pretty much fine with that. I know what those words say. That's really pretty. It's really pretty. A little bit of white twine around it. What do we think? Yes, definitely. So I want enough to go 2 or 3 times around the tag. Somewhere there. Oh look, now it's all caught up in the gypsophila. This is dried gypsophila from my birthday flowers. Do I want to tie on the front, or do I want it nice and subtly around the back? Let's see. Around 3 times. I think I'm probably happy with it at the back, like so. Which means that I can just use a bit of tape to tape it down. Same thing on this one. Round it goes. 1, 2, 3. Look, that one was a bit longer, so we could have gone further. Sorry, flowers. Oh, look, that's come off. So there's a good example. Do we mind? No, it's still pretty. But I'll be a bit more careful now because I'm going to lose the rest of it if I'm not careful. 1, 2. This is a question of more haste, less speed. This wouldn't be doing this if I was just not filming. It's one of the reasons I do still do things without filming them, I'm afraid. Sometimes I have my own private little bits of fun, and not everything is going to end up being filmed, because the very act of filming changes the experience of making. It just does. It's just how it works. I do want that little bit of gypsophila back because it makes a difference down this side of the tag. So this one, I'm going to pop a little bit of glue and just let it work its way to being dry. So while that's drying, I'll show you how I'm planning to glue things down at the back. That's with just a little bit of broad washi tape. Turn over the tag, get those 2 ends of twine lined up, and stick them down. Simple as that. Obviously I don't need all of that, so I can use some on the other tag as well. And I like the looseness of that. I like the random. It's joining in with the plants themselves in terms of random directionality and movement. And the same on this tag. Sticking those down. And what I'll probably do is mount these onto some scrap cardboard just to give them a bit more durability, a bit more presence, but I'm going to need to wait for that to dry in order to do that. And I might need one last little bit. You knew it was coming, didn't you? Last little bit of white spatter. I'm going to use a little bit less water in it this time so that I keep a bit more whiteness. Because I've got that strong white embossing now. So now it can take it in terms of that moonlit sparkle going across the rest of the tag. Yep, and we're done. I think we're done. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing that moonlit field come into being. As always, I planned on just a really quick few minutes of fun, and as always, I've just been having so much fun that we've expanded probably into a few more minutes of fun. If you've enjoyed it, do leave me a thumbs up, that'd be grand. Any comments or questions, as I say, I'll try to put as much information as I can in the description below the video. And if you haven't already subscribed, I would love to have your company on this crafty journey. I'm going to dive in now for a little bit of music and movement close-up of these tags and their beautiful dimensionality. But I hope that that will inspire you to have a little play with some more spritzing and flicking, with some more layered meadow stamping. And if you've got a moon mask, go ahead. If you haven't got a moon mask, just cut yourself a circle of card and create the texture any which way you want to. With some spritz and flick, you could do that. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and happy crafting all.